He walked in confident, saw her seated, and said, "You don't belong here." What did he not know? She was about to change everything. He arrived early, long before the lights dimmed, and the music started pulsing through the packed arena. The VIP section was a world apart, a fortress of velvet ropes, sleek leather seats, and the murmur of conversations between the city's elite. The air smelled faintly of expensive cologne and ambition, a place where power was worn like a badge and status was everything. Dressed in a navy blazer and polished shoes, the man carried himself with a swagger that bordered on arrogance. His jaw was set, eyes sharp and scanning. He belonged here, or so he thought. Tonight, he was ready to guard his territory, to protect what he believed was rightfully his, a front row seat next to the stage, reserved for those with pedigree and privilege. She entered quietly, unnoticed at first. Not because she was out of place, but because she chose to move with purpose rather than announce herself. Her outfit was simple but elegant, a tailored black dress, minimal jewelry, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded her face just enough to keep some mystery. But her presence was undeniable. Her posture radiated confidence, her stride measured and unshakable. The VIP section was almost full, but there was one empty seat that caught her eye. It was near the center, close enough to feel the bass thrum through the floor, a perfect spot to take in the show. She approached, sliding into the seat with a grace that made heads turn. Among the murmurs and sideways glances, one pair of eyes locked onto her immediately, cold, disapproving, and unyielding. The man rose abruptly, crossing his arms over his chest. His gaze sharpened as he took in her presence, as if daring her to challenge the invisible barrier he'd erected. Clearing his throat, he spoke, voice low, but carrying enough for nearby guests to hear. "Excuse me, that's not your seat." She looked up slowly, meeting his eyes without hesitation. "Yes, it is," she replied, holding out a sleek invitation card embossed with gold lettering, a VIP pass with her name and the event clearly printed. The man's face twisted into a scowl. "No, it's not," he said flatly. "You don't belong here." The words fell like stones in the silent tension that gripped the space. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of it. The woman's lips pressed into a firm line. She wasn't about to be intimidated. "Your discomfort is not my problem," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the hostility. The man took a step closer, lowering his voice to a cold whisper. "This isn't your level. You're making people uncomfortable." Her eyes flicked briefly to the little girl clutching the man's hand, a child who looked to her father for reassurance, scared but silent. But the woman's gaze remained unbroken. "Your discomfort isn't my responsibility," she said, her tone resolute. A quiet murmur ran through the crowd. The man's face flushed with anger. "I'm asking you to leave, for my daughter's sake." She shook her head, refusing to yield. "I have every right to be here. This seat is mine," he scoffed, stepping back but muttering under his breath loud enough to be heard. "People like you should know their place." That last phrase hung in the air, heavy and sharp. The woman's heart tightened, but she refused to let anger show. Instead, she breathed slowly, letting the rhythm of the music drown out the venom. She had heard it all before: the silent judgments, the invisible walls, the endless battles for respect in a world that tried to keep her small. Later, away from prying eyes, she allowed herself a moment. Sitting at a quiet cafe after the show, she stared out at the city lights shimmering across the water. The confrontation replayed in her mind. Every look, every word, every moment of resistance. She was no stranger to these battles. Growing up, her father was a force to be reckoned with, a titan in the business world whose name commanded respect across industries. But even with that legacy, her path had been anything but easy. She'd had to prove herself at every turn, fight harder than anyone expected, and endure the sting of prejudice with quiet dignity. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, a message from her father, simple but powerful. "Ready for the next move?" She smiled, a slow, knowing smile. This was just the beginning. The night's confrontation was a small storm in a much bigger journey, a journey to redefine what it meant to belong, to lead, and to change the game forever. Because in the end, power wasn't about where you sat or who told you to move. It was about standing firm when the world tried to push you down, and she was just getting started. The night air inside the arena was thick with excitement, the kind that only a packed concert could bring. Pulsing beats throbbed through the floor, sending vibrations up through the soles of expensive shoes and scuffed sneakers alike. But behind the thumping music, in the VIP section, roped off from the crowd below, another kind of tension simmered, one invisible but just as charged. Maya sat upright in her seat, a calm island amid the storm. Her tailored black dress hugged her figure, simple but elegant, and her eyes gleamed with quiet determination. The soft glow of stage lights caught the shimmer in her hair, but there was no softness in her gaze. It was sharp, steady, the gaze of someone who had faced storms far worse than this and refused to bow. Across the plush leather seats, Douglas, the man who had challenged her presence, was a study in frustration. He paced with clenched fists and a jaw tight enough to crack stone. His daughter, a shy girl clutching a well-loved stuffed bear, watched him nervously, her small face pale under the bright lights. Douglas was known in the local business circles for his arrogance, his bluntness, and his unwillingness to tolerate what he called out-of-place trouble. Tonight, Maya was that trouble. He stopped in front of her seat, voice low, but carrying across the quiet buzz of the VIP crowd. "You don't belong here," he said, eyes locked onto hers with a cold intensity. "This is a place for people like us, not for you." Maya didn't flinch. She looked up slowly, meeting his gaze with steady calm. "It is my seat," she said, producing her VIP invitation with the polished confidence of someone who never had to ask twice. The gold-embossed card gleamed in the light, her name printed clearly alongside the event details. Douglas's mouth twisted into a sneer. "You're making people uncomfortable," he spat. "For your own good, you should leave." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Some exchanged uncertain glances. Others watched with silent fascination. The weight of history, of countless battles fought quietly but fiercely by people like Maya, filled the space between them. Her voice dropped just enough to be heard only by him. "Your discomfort isn't my responsibility." Douglas's face reddened, veins tightening at his temples. "You don't understand," he said, stepping closer, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You don't belong here. This seat, this section, this world, it's not for you. For people like you." Maya's eyes flicked briefly to the little girl at his side. The child's grip on her bear tightened, but she said nothing, caught in the silent turmoil of witnessing her father's anger. Maya's reply was quiet but unyielding. "I belong wherever I choose." The air thickened. Nearby guests shifted uncomfortably, some turning their heads, some reaching furtively for phones. Whether to record or simply to distract themselves, no one was sure. Douglas scoffed and turned away, muttering darkly about people who don't know their place. He pulled his daughter close, as if to shield her from what had happened, though she seemed more uncertain about him than about Maya. Maya exhaled slowly, steadying her racing heart. She wasn't new to this. Her life had been shaped by moments like this. Moments when she was sized up and dismissed because of the color of her skin or the assumptions others made about her. Behind the scenes, she was the daughter of a powerful businessman whose influence spread through industries and cities like wildfire. But her power wasn't a gift handed to her on a silver platter. It had been earned through years of grit, sacrifice, and quiet determination to prove herself beyond anyone's prejudice. A message lit up her phone. "Hold your ground. We see you." She typed back quickly. "This is just the beginning." The music swelled around her, a soulful ballad that seemed to echo the fight simmering inside her. The world could try to push her out, but she was here to stay. Douglas, meanwhile, felt the sting of defeat creeping in. His kingdom was being challenged in ways he hadn't expected. Whispers about the woman who refused to move started circulating among the crowd, and he knew this was only the start of a battle he couldn't win by force. At that moment, a calm voice cut through the thick tension. "Is there a problem here?" Heads turned to see Marisol Vega, a poised and experienced event manager known for her no-nonsense approach. Her presence was steadying, like a lighthouse in the storm. Marisol's eyes swept the room. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back and let everyone enjoy the event." Douglas hesitated, then grudgingly retreated, casting one last venomous glance at Maya. The crowd's energy shifted. Applause rippled quietly, and a few people nodded at Maya with newfound respect. Sitting back, Maya allowed herself a brief smile. She had stood her ground tonight, not with anger or shouting, but with the quiet power of someone who knows the Badawi. Behind the scenes, her father watched the events unfold from a distance. He had taught her well that true power was not in loud declarations, but in unshakable presence. Tonight, Maya showed the world that power was hers. The night was far from over. But this victory, small as it was, would echo for a long time to come. The next morning, the city awoke with a ripple of conversations, whispers that spread beyond the concert venue into boardrooms, cafes, and private offices. The story of the woman who refused to vacate her VIP seat, despite a man's demands, was making its rounds. But what those whispers missed was the full story, the real truth behind Maya's presence and the significance of her stand. Maya sat in her upscale apartment high above the city streets, sunlight spilling in through floor-to-ceiling windows and casting a warm glow over the sleek, minimalist decor. Her gaze drifted out over the skyline, the bustling city alive with endless possibilities. Yet her mind was elsewhere, focused on the blinking notification on her phone screen. Her father's name was known and respected in countless circles, a man who had built an empire from the ground up. His influence stretched across real estate, finance, and philanthropy. But he was a man who valued subtlety and strategy, preferring to shape worlds quietly rather than seek the spotlight. Maya had inherited these traits, mastering the art of influence with grace and precision. She thumbed through emails and messages flooding in, congratulatory notes from allies, press inquiries, and a flood of social media posts dissecting the concert confrontation. Maya did not seek fame. She understood the dangers of the spotlight, especially one fueled by racial tension. But she knew the power it held and was determined to wield it responsibly. Her phone rang, and the screen flashed with a familiar number. She answered promptly. "Dad." "Maya." His voice was calm and steady, carrying a weight of experience. "I saw what happened last night." "I'm sure you did," she replied, her tone measured but resolute. "There's been a lot of chatter," he said thoughtfully. "This isn't just about a seat. It's about rewriting the rules. Are you prepared for what's coming?" She paused, considering. "I'm ready. I've never been more ready." A faint smile touched his lips. "Good, because the next step is coming fast. You're stepping into a leadership role that will test everything. Your resolve, your vision, your courage." Maya leaned back, the city noise fading into a soft hum. The personal victory at the concert was just the beginning. The real battle was about to unfold on a much larger stage. The corporate world awaited, with all its challenges and opportunities. Her past was marked by lessons in resilience and quiet strength. As a child, she had watched her father navigate a world resistant to change. Long nights poring over documents, negotiations fought with steely determination, and the constant battle against prejudice and doubt. She knew the stakes were high, and the path often lonely. But Maya was determined not to be a shadow behind her father's legacy. She had a vision of her own, one where diversity was not a buzzword, but a reality, where opportunity was not reserved for a few, but extended to all, and where respect was earned through action, not assumed by birthright. Later that day, she prepared for a pivotal meeting with the company's executive team. The firm was at a crossroads, shifting markets, fierce competition, and an undeniable need for transformation. Maya's role was clear: to be the catalyst for change. The boardroom was a glass-walled fortress, sunlight streaming in and reflecting off polished surfaces. Maya entered with quiet confidence, her presence commanding attention without a word. She was greeted with a spectrum of reactions: curiosity, skepticism, guarded respect. Breaking the silence, she spoke with clarity and purpose. "I'm here not to erase the past, but to build the future, one where inclusion, respect, and equity form the foundation of everything we do." She outlined her vision: investing in underserved communities, creating mentorship and leadership opportunities for diverse talent, and fostering a corporate culture rooted in fairness and accountability. Some in the room exchanged wary glances. Others nodded thoughtfully. But Maya was not content with mere words. That afternoon, she approved initiatives to launch community outreach programs, diversity audits, and leadership training focused on equity. Action was her language. Back at home, the phone kept ringing. Supporters and detractors alike reached out. Douglas, the man from the concert, was among those surprised by her sudden rise. Rumors began swirling in social circles, challenging the old guard and opening doors that had long been closed. Maya understood the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles. But every challenge was an opportunity, a chance to redefine leadership with strength, grace, and unyielding commitment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in golden light, one thing was clear: Maya was no longer just the woman who refused to move. She was the force changing the game. The days that followed the concert incident were unlike any Maya had ever experienced. The whispers had turned into conversations, and conversations had evolved into headlines. Yet, amidst the growing attention, Maya remained focused, not on the spotlight, but on the work ahead. Her phone was a constant companion, buzzing with messages and calls that ranged from congratulatory to critical. Friends, allies, and even strangers reached out, some offering support, others questioning her every move. But what Maya understood better than anyone was that change was never comfortable. It was messy, complicated, and often met with resistance. That morning, she stepped into her father's office, a sprawling space lined with bookshelves, heavy with leather-bound volumes, and walls adorned with portraits of family and founders. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, a tangible reminder of the legacy she was about to inherit. Her father sat behind a massive mahogany desk, his gaze steady as she entered. "Ready?" he asked simply. "I am," Maya replied, her voice calm but filled with determination. He nodded, a flicker of pride crossing his usually stoic features. "Then let's begin." Maya's first order of business was a comprehensive review of the company's operations. She pored over financial reports, diversity metrics, and employee feedback. It was clear that while the company had grown in size and profit, it had lagged in culture and inclusivity. She convened a meeting with the senior leadership team, a room full of sharp minds and guarded attitudes. Maya didn't waste time. "We are at a crossroads," she said. "Profit alone is not enough. Our company must reflect the world we serve, diverse, dynamic, and equitable." Some nodded. Others remained silent. Change, especially when it threatened comfort zones, was a tough sell. But Maya came prepared. She unveiled a series of initiatives designed not just to tick boxes, but to transform the corporate culture. Mentorship programs pairing young talent from underserved communities with company leaders. Mandatory inclusivity and unconscious bias training for all employees. Creation of a diversity council empowered to influence hiring, promotion, and company policies. Community investment projects aimed at fostering education and entrepreneurship. Her vision was clear: a company that led not just in market share, but in social responsibility. Meanwhile, word of Maya's new role had reached Douglas. The man who had so vehemently challenged her presence at the concert found himself on the receiving end of whispers. Whispers, questioning his own values and place in the new order Maya was shaping. He sat in his office, fuming over an email inviting him to a meeting with Maya. "What does she want with me?" he muttered. "After everything." That meeting was the turning point. Douglas walked into the conference room, his usual bravado tempered by uncertainty. Maya greeted him with a calm smile. No bitterness, no triumph, just business. "I want to talk about your role in this company," she began. "We both know the world is changing, and so must we." Douglas shifted in his seat, eyes wary. "I don't see how I fit into your vision." "That's what I want to explore," Maya replied. "I believe everyone has value. What matters is how willing we are to grow and learn." It was a test, not just of Douglas's professionalism, but of his willingness to confront his own biases. Maya proposed a path forward. Douglas could join one of the new mentorship programs, work closely with diverse teams, and help bridge gaps that had long divided the company. The conversation was tense but honest. Douglas struggled with pride and the realization that the old ways were fading. Yet, beneath the surface, a seed of respect began to take root. Beyond corporate walls, Maya's influence expanded. She spoke at conferences, championed diversity in business circles, and mentored young leaders who saw in her a reflection of their own potential. Each step forward was a challenge to the status quo, a declaration that leadership was not a birthright, but a responsibility. The company began to change, slowly but undeniably. Employee engagement rose, community partnerships flourished, and the brand gained a reputation not just for success, but for heart. Yet, Maya knew the journey was far from over. Resistance lingered in boardrooms and break rooms. Old habits died hard, but with each day, the tide shifted. As evening fell over the city, Maya stood on her balcony, looking out at the skyline, glowing with promise. The music from a nearby street festival drifted up, mingling with the cool breeze. She smiled to herself, knowing that changing the game wasn't about a single moment, but a lifetime of persistence, courage, and vision. And she was ready to lead the way. The weeks that followed the pivotal meeting between Maya and Douglas rippled through the company like a tidal wave, breaking down old barriers and reshaping long-held attitudes. The atmosphere was tense, part anticipation, part resistance, but the winds of change were unmistakable. Douglas found himself in unfamiliar territory. Once the undisputed alpha of his domain, he was now navigating new expectations and challenges that tested not just his skills, but his deepest beliefs. The mentorship program Maya had invited him to wasn't just about business. It was a lesson in humility, awareness, and growth. His first session was with a young woman named Tasha, a bright and ambitious project manager from a minority background who had fought tooth and nail for every opportunity she earned. At first, Douglas approached with skepticism, but Tasha's professionalism and clear-eyed perspective slowly chipped away at his defenses. "You've got experience, Douglas," she said bluntly in their second meeting. "But experience alone won't lead us forward. We need to understand each other's stories if we want to grow." He grunted, but listened. For the first time, Douglas began to see beyond the surface. The invisible barriers Tasha and others had faced, the microaggressions ignored, the systemic challenges that had been swept under the rug. Meanwhile, Maya's leadership style, firm but empathetic, started to gain traction throughout the company. Her town halls were packed, and her direct emails sparked conversations, sometimes uncomfortable but always necessary. One afternoon, Maya called Douglas into her office. The space was bright, with sunlight spilling over the polished wood and soft hum of the city beyond the windows. She smiled, genuine but measured. "How are you feeling about the program?" she asked. Douglas shifted in his seat, tension evident but tempered by a hint of respect. "It's enlightening, more than I expected." "That's growth," Maya replied. "It's not about being right all the time. It's about being willing to learn." She handed him a folder. Inside was an opportunity, a leadership role in a new initiative focused on community engagement, a project close to Maya's heart. It was a chance for Douglas to prove himself anew, to rebuild trust and contribute in meaningful ways. Douglas nodded slowly, the weight of the moment sinking in. "I want to do this right." As he left, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction. This was more than a job change. It was a transformation. Back in the field, Douglas threw himself into the community initiative, meeting with local leaders, organizing outreach programs, and most importantly, listening. His reports back to Maya were candid, filled with insights that surprised even him. But the real test came unexpectedly. At a company-wide meeting, Maya announced a new policy: zero tolerance for discrimination and harassment, backed by concrete enforcement and anonymous reporting channels. It was a bold move that sent ripples through the staff. That same day, an incident occurred. A junior employee reported a microaggression by a senior manager. The case went through the new channels swiftly. Maya personally oversaw the resolution, emphasizing transparency and accountability. The senior manager was disciplined, and the company held a workshop on respect and inclusion. It was a landmark moment, a clear message that the old ways no longer had a place. Douglas watched from the sidelines, conflicted but committed. He realized that leadership was about more than power. It was about responsibility and courage. Outside the office, Maya's influence continued to grow. She was invited to speak at national conferences, sharing her journey and advocating for diversity in leadership. Her story resonated, inspiring countless others to challenge the status quo. One evening, after a particularly successful community event, Maya received a call from Douglas. His voice was steady but reflective. "Maya, I just want to say thank you for giving me a chance, for pushing me to be better." She smiled, the kind of smile that held both warmth and resolve. "We're all learning, Douglas, together." As the company embraced its new direction, old rivalries softened, replaced by collaboration and respect. The workplace became more inclusive, vibrant, and innovative. The final turning point came when Douglas, standing before the entire leadership team, publicly acknowledged Maya's role in changing not only the company, but himself. "This company, and I, are better because of her vision and courage," he said, voice clear and sincere. The room erupted in applause, a symbol of the profound shift that had taken place. Maya stood beside him, not as a victor over an adversary, but as a leader who had turned conflict into opportunity. Looking out over the city skyline from her office window, Maya reflected on the journey. From a confrontation in a VIP seat to transforming a company's culture, the road had been long and challenging. But the real victory was in the change, in hearts, minds, and the future they were building. She knew there would be more battles ahead, more moments that would test her resolve. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. Because sometimes, the greatest power is the courage to stay, to stand firm, and to lead the way forward. The city lights stretched out like a sea of stars beneath Maya's office window, glittering with promise and possibility. The hum of the bustling streets below was a familiar soundtrack, one she had come to know intimately throughout her journey. Tonight, however, the noise felt different, quieter, more purposeful. Maya stood alone for a moment, absorbing the significance of all that had transpired. From the tense confrontation in the VIP section to the monumental shifts within the company and community, her path had been anything but easy. Yet every challenge, every setback, had forged her into the leader she was today. She turned away from the window and looked around her office, a space filled with symbols of hard work and perseverance. Awards from community organizations, photographs of moments shared with colleagues and friends, and letters from young leaders whose lives she had touched. It was more than a workplace. It was a testament to transformation. As Maya prepared to leave, her phone buzzed softly on the desk. It was a message from Douglas, the man who had once demanded she leave her seat, but had since become a partner in change. His words were simple, yet profound. "Thank you for teaching me what true leadership means," she smiled, the warmth of that message settling deep inside. Change wasn't just about policies or profits. It was about people, their stories, struggles, and growth. Maya knew the road ahead would hold new challenges, but she felt ready. Outside, the company was alive with energy. The cultural shifts she had championed had breathed new life into the organization. Teams were more collaborative, voices previously unheard were now celebrated, and the brand had become a beacon of inclusivity and innovation. At the heart of this new beginning was a lesson that Maya never forgot. Respect and dignity were not privileges reserved for a few, but rights earned by all, through courage and integrity. Weeks later, the company hosted a gala celebrating its renewed commitment to diversity and social impact. The event was filled with laughter, speeches, and heartfelt stories. Maya took the stage, her presence commanding yet approachable. "I stand here not as someone who has all the answers," she said, voice steady and sincere, "but as someone who believes in the power of change. Change that comes from listening, learning, and leading with heart." She shared the story of that fateful night, the confrontation that sparked a fire within her and ignited a movement. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring many to reflect on their own biases and roles in shaping a better future. Among the audience, Douglas watched with newfound respect. He had journeyed far from the man who had once tried to push her away. Now, he was a testament to the possibility of growth and redemption. As the evening drew to a close, Maya stepped outside to the cool night air. The city skyline was a tapestry of light and shadow, much like the journey she had traveled. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history and the thrill of what was yet to come. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from a young woman she had mentored. "Because of you, I believe I can lead too." Maya's heart swelled. That was the legacy she wanted. Not wealth or titles, but the ripple effect of empowerment, the passing of a torch to those who would carry it forward. She smiled softly to herself, knowing that the true victory was not in a single confrontation or promotion, but in the ongoing work of building a world where everyone's place was respected and valued. The journey had changed her, shaped her into a leader who led not by demand, but by example. A woman who had refused to be moved, and in doing so, moved others toward a brighter future. Maya looked up at the stars, scattered across the night sky. The path ahead was still long, winding through shadows and light. But with each step, she would walk with courage, compassion, and unwavering resolve. Because the seat she claimed that night was more than just a chair at a concert. It was a symbol of belonging, power, and the right to shape one's own destiny. And Maya was here to stay.